Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Real Entertainment. And I am here for a film I'm actually really excited to talk to you about today because honestly, I was probably one of the few people who, when this film was announced, was very intrigued even before the casting started for it. And that is none other than Paul King's Wonka. That is right, the Willy Wonka origin story that nobody asked for. And by the end of the movie, you're going to find out and decide for yourself whether it was one we actually needed. Me, however, I am here to tell you about how I felt about that. And I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey. And thank you for gathering up and listening down. Scratch that, reverse it, because this was ultimately a really fun ride. Timothée Chalamet as Wonka does a very beautiful job of just channeling Gene Wilder with a tiny bit of Johnny Depp in the right moments, but ultimately making it his own and giving this crazy, kooky man some depth that was, I wouldn't say sorely needed, because considering this film is supposed to be a straight up prequel to the 70s classic, I myself am still am an apologist for the Tim Burton film because that is the most true adaptation out of the two. But I'll cover that later. But this is supposed to be a prequel to the 70s Gene Wilder film. And with that in mind, watching it does a fantastic job. And make no mistake, it does not even try to hide it's a prequel, because when you hear the pure imagination music just playing in the background as the credits start and the Warner Brothers logo rolls and everything, you know which Wonka verse, if you want to call it that, you're in. Paul King does a fantastic job of directing this film. When they announced he was directing it, that already had my intrigue, because while I haven't seen Paddington 2, I have seen Paddington 1, and that was actually fairly enjoyable to me, and I just haven't gotten around to seeing the second one. So knowing that a lot of people I trust enjoyed that, and I know I enjoyed the first Paddington, I'm like, all right, I'm very intrigued for this. He's credited as one of the writers on the film, as well as the director, of course. And the layers he adds to Wonka and this world that he's living in is incredible. Now, in the terms of it being a prequel, there is some stuff that doesn't line up, because we know why he shut down the shop or shut down the factory and whatnot, and that's explained in the book and the prequel. And based off of where this film takes certain storylines, you wonder how that lines up. You wonder if there could potentially be a sequel for Wonka in that way, because while it doesn't leave a traditional ending, it's I mean, an ending that is good for a continuation one. It does leave questions, because we all know the story of why he shut down the factory. People were stealing his recipes. He had to fire his workforce because of it, so on and so forth. We don't really get that in this. And how the movie ends, you would think they just skipped over that. And yeah, it's confusing in those parts, and that's probably some of my knocks against it. My other knock against it is not the actual songs and the singing themselves, because that was fantastic, kept me engaged. However, a lot of the songs are forgettable. They don't have that magic that Pure Imagination has, and they rely heavily on bringing Pure Imagination back in that, whether it's just as background music or when the song finally gets sung in a new form itself. But ultimately, the music's fine. Nothing memorable, but it's fine. I do want to talk about. I know people have feelings about how the Oompa Loompa looks and everything. As someone who read the book growing up, it was one of my favorite books. The original film is not a very true adaptation to what the book is. The Tim Burton film, minus the whole Wonka's father stuff and all that, is very true to what the original book is. So I still watch that Tim Burton version and have warm feelings towards it, because that to me is the more true adaptation of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, as it's really called, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But this film seems to try to blend more so with that original film, and so be it. But it doesn't always succeed in that way. And it is what it is. But when it comes to the Oompa Loompas, getting back to the main topic of why I want to under this, Oompa Loompas are only supposed to be like yay big, like Hugh Grant is in said film. In this film, they were never the size of the little people who played the Oompa Loompas in the original, or Deep Chop Roy, who played the Oompa Loompa in the Tim Burton film. This is what the Oompa Loompas are supposed to be. So it looked good. Shockingly, not a ton of Oompa Loompa. Not upset about it. Not happy about it either. It just, with how big of a deal they were making about it, I expected a little bit more. But ultimately, we see almost every Oompa Loompa scene in the trailers. And there's only 2-3 trailers. So that was interesting to me. Ultimately, though, if I'm going to give this film a rating, it's 4 out of 5 for me. Once again, the forgettable music, the lack of continuity, especially when you're saying this is a prequel to this 70s film, those are kind of the reasons I had issues with the film in general. But overall, Timothée Chalamet, the amazing supporting cast, who I know I didn't touch on, Hugh Grant, just fantastic. Matt Lucas was fantastic. Patterson Joseph was fantastic. Matthew Bainton was fantastic. Keegan-Michael Key as the chief of police is hilarious. And just Wonka's cohorts. There's 5 cohorts. Ooh, Easter egg, maybe. But either way, I really dug this film overall. It is warm. I felt good about the world after watching it. I think that's what you ultimately want after watching this film. So, signing off. Before I do, I still got to plug stuff. So, Watt Real Gaming, myself, Taylor Cleek, all that. We do, and everybody over here, we do gaming, this, that, and the other. On our Twitch, which, by the way, if you want to follow us on Twitch, it is literally just twitch.tv/WattRealN, spelled like it is right there. So be sure to follow us on Twitch, and just check out all the other reviews we're doing over here, whether it's with myself, with Jeff, with myself, Jeff and Paige, with myself and Paige, with myself and Jeff. Check out all the reviews we got over here at Watt Real Entertainment, because we're having fun with it. So until then, folks, signing off, I'm Matt, and this was another Real Review. Have a good one.